Hello everyone, my name is Voya and welcome to my deep guide. Today we're going to be taking an in-depth look into the Onyx Boox Nova 2. Before we dive in deep, I just wanted to mention one thing. During the unboxing video, when I first attempted to put the device into the flipbook cover, the fit was way too snug. One of the corners didn't want to come in, and also the flipping back of the cover was a little bit uncomfortable and too tight. I'm happy to report that even after like maybe just 2 days, all of the corners are fitting perfectly nicely, and furthermore it's able to flip around perfectly comfortably, and it just works in a proper way, just the way you would actually expect it. So both of those issues are basically gone as soon as the cover has been worn in. All right, and now let's dive in. Here is the Nova 2, and it's overall a very lovely little package and a design as a device itself. So it's a 7.8-inch e-ink Android powered tablet with a glass screen on the front and a plastic cover on the back. However, both the glass front and the plastic on the back are of a different quality level and different quality impression than the Note 2. So for example, the glass panel is a little bit less reflective, and it gives a bit of a different tactile feel when touching it and when writing on it. More pleasant than, for me at least, the Note 2. The same thing goes for the back as well. It actually feels like more of a high quality plastic, and it's not as plasticky as the Note 2 was. Also, it's a lot more fingerprint resistant, and you can just simply wipe it and it all goes away. The overall design and weight, because it's smaller and smaller weight and smaller format, the end result is that it's a better balanced device. You can hold it better in your hand, and it's far more comfortable to use for extended periods of time. Now, granted, that of course will be true of any smaller format device, but there's something particular about the Nova 2, how it actually is in your hand, and I think it has to do with the way these corners have been angled. It just sits in a hand very comfortably, and I've been using it like for hours at a time and never had any problems at all. So really well designed. It feels super sturdy, there's no bends of any type, and it's really high quality type of product. It feels sturdy, it feels strong, and I feel confident to use it. Here's the thing, usually I'm very cautious about the glass screens, and rightfully so, right? You don't want to break them. But for whatever reason, especially when it's in a cover, that kind of caution and fear goes away with Nova. Maybe again because it's a smaller format, I really don't know, but that's just my overall impression. In the front we have the back button that can be set up to work as a home button as well, but it is not a fingerprint reader. On the top we have a power button with the LED indication, and at the bottom we have a USB-C and a little microphone. Nothing on the sides and nothing on the back, and the reason behind it is because Nova 2, unlike the Note 2, doesn't have built-in speakers. In order to get the sound out of it, it has the Bluetooth connection, so you can actually hook up your Bluetooth headphones or speakers wirelessly, or you can use the USB-C because it has the OTG functionality as well, and maybe that can help out in your connectivity needs as well. Inside, it's an incredibly packed little beast. Don't let a small size fool you. This is sporting the same exact octa-core 2 GHz CPU, and it's backed up with 3 GB of RAM. So not 4 GB like the Note 2, but 3 GB is more than enough. It also has 32 GB of internal storage, and there's no external storage card option available. It comes packed with the, as I said, 7.8 3-inch e-ink display that is using the standard resolution of 1872 by 1404. That amounts to 300 pixels per inch. That offers a slightly crisper and nicer reading experience. It also has a front light that has both the orange and the blue type of functionality. Touch capability is both stylus and capacitive touch. As far as connectivity goes, it has pretty much everything, so both 2.4 and 5G Wi-Fi is supported, as well as 4.1 Bluetooth. The battery is a little bit lower than on the Note 2 at 3150 milliamps. The USB-C, as I mentioned, supports the OTG functionality. As far as compatibility formats and all that kind of stuff, well, it's an Android 9 tablet, so it supports a lot of things, pretty much every document type that you could think of, such as PDFs, EPUBs, text, DJVU, HTML, FB2 documents, MOBI, CHM, and others. It also supports image formats such as PNG, JPEG, and BMPs, and audio formats such as WAV files and MP3 files. Third-party app installation is supported once Google Play has been activated. So let's dig in, and first of all I just want to say that I'm doing the review on the OS 2.3 version. So if you're coming from the future, first of all, welcome traveler, and second of all, if you're wondering why am I not covering a feature that may exist in your timeline, it's simply because it doesn't exist yet for me. We can now focus on the overall user experience and the usability of the Onyx Boox Nova 2. Now also keep in mind that the 2.3 should double. The functionality should be pretty much exactly the same on a Note 2 and possibly Max 3 as well. I'm not entirely sure, but for sure it's Nova 2 and Note 2, they have the same exact experience. So you can use this video as a 2.3 guide for Note 2 as well. Everything should be laid out exactly the same. It's just bigger screen and a little bit more icon space, nothing more. Like before, your main home screen is divided into three main areas. You have the content area, you have the notification bar, and we have the functions bar. So the content area is always going to display your contents, notifications depending on the mode, and function bar changes. Let's start with the notification area first, and like in any Android powered device, a simple swipe down will bring down the notification details, and you'll have the back button, home button, and the apps or multitasking menu buttons. Then we have the Wi-Fi toggling, we have the Bluetooth toggling as well. The rotation is quite interesting, and this is this type of rotation approach works throughout all of the apps in the reader and everything else, so it's something that's quite useful. And I love the fact that they're using this little letter T, which really makes it very clear. And for me, the easiest way of using it is basically I'll just orient the device how I want to use it, and then I'll find the letter T that's correctly oriented, and then I just press it and the device will orient itself the way I want it to. Similarly, if I just go here and then rotate, and maybe I want to bring it back to normal, I'll just find the letter T that's facing my direction normally, press it, and that's it. Everything here in the notification area is a global type of setting, not local for the app. Next to the Bluetooth, we have the screen refresh modes, and both Note 2 and Nova 2 come with advanced screen refresh modes. They have four refresh modes. First is the normal mode, which is the slowest one and the best results. I find it most usable for note-taking, scribbles, and all that kind of things. Speed mode introduces slight ghosting, but does improve speed quite a bit. And when you're reading through documents and you want to go quickly through thumbing down pages and all that kind of stuff, it actually is a difference. And the ghosting is not enough to put me off or to actually bother me. So when I'm reading through documents, books, or anything like that, more often than not, I'm going to be on the speed refresh mode of the screen. A2 mode is even faster, and it actually allows for scrolling. So when I'm reading through web pages or articles or even emailing, Because of the scrolling functionality, it's actually something that I use quite often. Now, ghosting is something that will be present there, but since we have some other types of functionalities that we're going to go through as well, you can just simply refresh and then it's going to be fine. Lastly, we have the X mode, which is like super fast mode, and it can actually show videos. I'm not going to bother actually previewing that because it works pretty much exactly the same like in Note 2, and for that you can check out my Note 2 video. X mode is an interesting experiment, but nothing more than that, because I can't really find it usable because the amount of degradation and ghosting and everything, it's just not something that I use. But these three modes are exceptionally usable, and the way I use them, just to summarize: normal mode I use for writing and sketching, speed mode is for reading, and the A2 mode for scrolling web pages and all that sort of stuff. Then we have the overall global contrast. The global contrast is not your only option, it's just like an overall type of thing. And then we have the edit button, which allows us to customize these quick access or shortcut icons. And basically the only one currently that we can actually add is finger touch enabled, disabled. So basically disabling the touch sensitivity on the screen, which can be useful, but there are other shortcuts that actually do this. So again, depending on the mode where you're in. Then we have the front light options, and like most of the devices today, it has two types of front lights. We have our daytime orange type of light, and we have the nighttime blue light. You can adjust them individually so that you can get exactly the type of feel that you like, or you can synchronize them, and as soon as they're synchronized, they'll snap back together, and then when you move either one of them, both actually move at the same time. One thing to note here is that the back button, long press, 3-second long press, 1, 2, 3, will toggle the front light off, or 1, 2, 3, toggle it back on. So that's a nice little shortcut that I use quite a lot. However, you should be aware that currently, if it is switched to function as a home button, then this long press functionality goes away. Hopefully that will be, it's a small fix, so it's something that will be fixed in the future, but at the moment of reviewing, that's something that's there. Lastly, we have the standard media volume type of control, and like on any Android device, you have separate options for media, alarm, and notification volumes. And incidentally, this is where you can turn on the Do Not Disturb mode and adjust your overall notifications to kind of suit your needs. One other thing that's also important to note is that in the notifications area, if your keyboard is being used and displayed, you will see this little keyboard icon appear, and that's an indication that you are now able to go into the notifications area, and you will have this option here to manage your keyboard, and more importantly, to change the active keyboard. And for me, that's basically the main way that I was able to change the keyboard. I can download and install different keyboards, I can make them active, but this was the only way to actually switch between different keyboards. So by default, you get this type of keyboard, which is something that I don't prefer and I don't like. I really like the functionality of the Gboard because I find it way faster and more intuitive to use. So one of the first things that I do is, after activating Google Play Store, I install the Gboard. So once it's installed, then I need to actually activate it. And the process of activating a new keyboard is basically you just get to a place where your keyboard is active. For me, the easiest one is to simply go to a search function. The keyboard icon appears, I swipe down, tap on the keyboard here, and then switch to the keyboard that I want. And now that it's set, every time I go back, this is the active keyboard that I'll have to use. So it's just something that's kind of useful to know where to quickly set up your keyboard and where to switch to it. Similarly, when you plug in the USB cable as well, by default it will be discoverable as a device on your computer, but if you wanted to change your discoverable settings and all that kind of stuff, how the connection is made, you can just simply swipe down, and here you will have an additional notification regarding the USB connectivity to your PC. So let's start with the library, and the library is pretty similar as before, and it offers you a very nice overview and ability to organize your books and documents in a nice manner. One important thing to note, even though you are able to add sub-library folders, so to speak, these are not actual folders on your storage device. So library is simply a user interface on top of everything else that allows you to organize things in a nicer way. You are able to sort your documents by recent or just view as a bookshelf type of icon. You're able to search your documents. As I mentioned, you can add new folders or libraries, and they can be nested, so you can have a library within a library. Then we have the multi-select option mode, where once you enter the multi-option mode, you're able to touch on the upper left corner to check mark the items that you want to perform operations on. And these are the operations that you can do. So you can select all, move, delete, lock, unlock, or cancel. So let's say if I wanted to move, I can just move them to user manuals, and then I can just go back to user manuals and say like, oh, but I really don't want them to be here, so I'm just gonna reorganize these things, and now I can actually move these guys back to the books folder, and everything is nice and clean. Generally speaking, if you're in normal mode, like not the multi-select mode, long press and hold will give the details and additional options regarding the document that you're looking at, or the folder. And this is where you will be able to move, delete, lock, or unlock your individual documents or folders. Now, one thing that's been added in 2.3 update is the ability to use a separate locking pin code that's used for locking documents themselves. So now you're able to have a general pin code for the device itself, right? And you have a different type of a locking pin code that can be used for locking and non-locking documents. Now, it's not possible to have an individual locking pin per document or per folder, nor is it a true type of encryption, because once you lock a document, it's just a local type of control thing. It's not something that's going to translate to another device of any sort. So just keep that in mind. It's not an encryption, but it is a nice and welcome level of control. And lastly, in the details, this is where you will also find at the bottom the actual storage path where the document has been stored, so that you know where to find it if you want to do something with it. Next to it, we have a new addition here, which is called Reading Statistics, and that just displays your reading statistics overall. None of these are actually interactable, but the last one, Highlights and Annotations, is interactable, and this one will give you an overall overview of all of your highlights and annotations per document. So you can see that, for example, in this document, I have 8 annotations, and then I can go inside, and it will sort all of the annotations and highlights that I have. So I think that's a very, very useful addition to have, and it offers a very good overview over your categorization and editing of documents. Lastly, we have additional options here, and we can filter and sort in many different ways: date, time, name, blah blah. We can refresh the library. Personally, I've never found the need to refresh manually, because the device is extremely good at manually refreshing and detecting when things have been updated or changed, but the option is there. Same thing goes for scan book covers. I've never had so far an experience where I needed to manually scan for covers. It automatically detected everything, but in case it doesn't, the manual option is there. Then we have additional library settings, where you can set which folders the library is going to be aware of and what it's going to be scanning automatically, manually, how it's going to show things. Is it going to show file names or titles and all of that kind of good stuff. And finally, we have the ability to switch between the list mode or the cover mode for your library. Now, before I get into a document and the whole reader overview of functionalities, I want to address this little guy here. So this is the navigation ball, and previously it was something that was promising, but unfortunately, because of the nature of how it functions, it was always a little bit in the way, and I ended up actually turning it off and wishing that I could use it. However, from 2.3, they've added this super simple type of thing that completely transformed this tool into one of my favorite tools on the device. And what I'm talking about is this little icon here. Now, first of all, for those who don't know what the navigation ball is, it's basically a shortcut that offers you up to 9 additional icons that are basically shortcuts to whatever you want. It can be some of the many offered functions of the device, or it can start up any app that you want. But the thing that's really important is this little icon here at the bottom, because what that does is it minimizes it. And now it's minimized to the side, and now it's no longer in the way at all. And you can reposition it at any given point, and this simple thing completely transforms the usability experience of this tool. And I find it irreplaceable now, because you can have 9 of these shortcuts, and you can arrange them in a fan or a vertical or horizontal, whatever you like. But that minimize thing, it's absolutely brilliant. It's surprising how such a small thing can transform a tool in such a significant way. Alright, and now let's get into the reader capabilities. Once you enter a document, there are a couple of things that you should be aware of how to actually navigate and how to do these things. Before I get into the whole navigation and reader type of things, you will notice that we have yet another addition here. This is another addition in 2.3 as well, and this is a shortcut toolbar basically, and it works very similarly to the navigation ball as well. So long press in the middle 3 bars will basically get you into the drag mode, and you can dock it on any side that you want, left or right, depending on your orientation. It cannot dock up and down unless you're in the landscape mode. What this offers is a couple of shortcuts. First of all, it's possible to minimize it in the same exact way as the navigation ball. You're able to undo your actions. You're able to navigate using these previous page and next page buttons. You're able to toggle the palm rejection or touch responsiveness with the shortcut there, and you're able to get into the scribble mode, which is also a floating bar which can be repositioned using the same type of gestures. And this scribble bar is basically just a shortcut to all of your scribble tools. So it's the exact same type of functionality, nothing is omitted. So you have your brushes, zoom function, color, eraser, undo, redo, save, export, and minimize. Very, very cool, and it's a really useful tool. Again, same as the navigation ball, something that transforms the overall experience in a very significant way. Now, onto the overall touch navigation within a document. It's exactly the same for EPUBs or PDFs or any other type of documents that you may read. The first thing that you'll probably notice is that it responds in a predictable manner to any action that you actually do. So for example, if I swipe left or right, I will flip a page. If I tap left or right, it will flip a page, and even if you swipe up or down, it will flip a page. If you tap in the middle, it will bring up the reader menu. If you tap in the middle again, it will bring it out. If you double tap on the diagonal, any diagonal works, but for me this is the better one. It will actually take a screenshot that you can either cancel or you can save, which will automatically be saved to screenshots to the screenshots folder. Or if you're logged in and you're using the Onyx Boox account, then you can share via your account. In the upper right corner, we have this little bookmark icon, which when pressed turns black, and then your page is simply bookmarked. And lastly, we have also the interaction with the content of the document itself. A long press on a word will select it, and a single selected word will automatically bring up the dictionary at the bottom. And a dictionary, depending on how it's equipped, it will either display no results, or in this case it has a result, and then you can flip through all of the results here. Let's get this guy a little bit out of the way. Then you can flip through all of the results here, and at the bottom you have the additional options what to do with the selected word. You can copy the word, you can add an annotation, you can translate it, you can do a web search, you can speak it, you can search the document for the word. This one's also adding actually an annotation itself, and you can add the word to the dictionary if you wanted to. Let's say that you didn't want to select just a single word. Let's say that you wanted to make a selection. Well, that's why you have these little handles on the side. So long press on one of them and you can just drag and adjust the selection to however it is that you want. Once the selection is made, you get additional options. So on the bottom we have the same options that we already seen, which is copy, add an annotation, translate, web search, speak, and search the document. And on the top we have the marking options or highlighting options. So we can change the color between black and gray. We can change the type of highlighting, so it can be a line, a wavy line, a dotted line, just a full-on highlighting, and a new addition is also we can redact, and you can redact in either color. It doesn't matter if it's redaction, the black text will not shine through. And you can also delete the selection. Another thing that's also important to know is that while the settings of the selections are persistent, you are allowed to have different types of markings and highlightings in the same document. So I can have all of these types of things, and maybe I can just, maybe I can just change this to black, and let's say that I want to add an annotation to this one. I just tap on the highlighted selection, go here and say, this is my added annotation. And you can see how incredibly responsive this device is. The typing experience is absolutely flawless, and the display is able to actually give you the confidence that what you're doing is proper. There's no kind of insecurity or anything like that. I don't have to think about typing, I just simply type and it works. It was really, really important functionality for a device of this type. Once you actually added an annotation, there's going to be this little icon with 3 dots added to the highlight, and that's an indication that this is not just a highlighted selection, but that actually this has been turned into an annotation. And once I tap on it, if I tap on the annotation again, I can see and modify or delete everything. So let's say that I no longer want any of these guys. I'm just going to tap, delete, and my page is clean. Now let's check out the menus that we have. If you tap in the middle, then you have the upper menu and the bottom menu. The upper menu is a global type of menu that is exactly the same, and it's valid for any document type. So it's like a global type of functionality for the Reader app. And the first thing that you'll notice is that we have tabs for recent documents that were used. And depending on your session, depending on what was loaded last or not, maybe it will need to load a document, but if it has been recently used, it will simply switch between documents in a very quick fashion. Then we have the scribble mode on or off, and this is not just a palm rejection, it actually changes things a little bit. So with the scribble on, I'm able to write as you would expect it, right? And I can just delete also as you would expect it. However, if I turn off the scribble mode is disabled, now my pen can also function as a touch. So I can long press and select the words as I would before, right? But if I wanted to, I can also do a long press with my pen and then basically use my pen as the input device instead of the touch, and it responds in exactly the same way as a touch would. Then we have the front light control, which is exactly the same as in the upper notifications area. We have separate dictionary access, so you can explore your dictionary, you can searching, adding items and all of these good things, and you're not stuck to the built-in dictionaries. You are able to add additional custom dictionaries of your own. More on that later when we talk about the storage functionality of the device. You have the search ability, so you can actually search through the document, and in the additional options we have the screen refresh, which is cool, but in the settings there's a couple of important things here that it would be good to actually know where to find them. So first of all, general settings, it just basically allows you to customize your reading experience to the way you see fit. Touch settings is quite important here, because as you'll notice, when I was tapping, I could tap left or right or in the middle to flip pages or get the menu. So flip page, back, forward, or the menu. That's the touch mode 1 that I made. But you have 6 other touch modes that are already made as a preset, with 3 custom touch modes also available. So you can create 3 of your own custom presets to accommodate your needs. And I think this is absolutely spectacular, because you can customize the reading experience to whatever it is that you might want it to be, or whatever it is that you've already been used to. So that's a huge thing, and I think it's an important thing for you guys to actually know where to find it. So it's in settings, touch settings of the reader app itself. In the settings you also have the text-to-speech settings, where you can flip between different text-to-speech engines that are installed, and you also have the options here. Then we have the export settings, where you can adjust how to export to the cloud, and should it export to where to export your documents when they are being saved, and should you export to the directory, same with the original files. The same thing goes for the screenshots, exactly the same stuff. And finally you have the version number of the software itself. On to the bottom bar. Now the bottom bar functionality is largely the same between different formats, but between, for example, ebooks like EPUB or documents like PDFs, there's going to be some small differences, and the main difference is going to be in the format and the navigation itself. Everything else is going to function pretty much exactly the same. You will always be presented with the progress as the default selected option, which makes sense. And the progress works very nicely, because you can simply drag and select, and it's so immediate and it's so responsive that it's absolutely fantastic. There's no waiting of any kind, and again, that octa-core CPU is just mind-blowing, because everything is so smooth and so precise that it just gives you confidence to use the device further. In the progress area, you can jump to the previous chapter or to the next chapter. This document doesn't have chapters, so I can't really switch between them, but in a document that does, you can switch to chapters. You can enable reading. So this is where the document would start reading, and you have pause, stop, cancel, settings, text-to-speech settings, and then you also have the volume and the speed rate of the reading. Next you have the preview or the slideshow capability, and you are able to actually initiate the auto flipping of the pages, and now it's going to flip a page automatically every 5 seconds. And if that's not something that you're looking for, the interval is from 5 seconds to 180 seconds, and a total, I think, with total pages of 20,000 pages. So that should be quite sufficient, I think. Then we have the page overview, so you can navigate through the document using the page overview, and you can change between a single page, 4-page, or 9-page layout, and the progress is also available here at the bottom as well. And lastly, we have something that's quite useful in specific situations. Let's say that for whatever reason I was referencing page 85, and then I want to quickly go back to page 6. These two buttons allow you to quickly flip back and forth between two different pages of the same document. So that's something that's actually quite useful depending on what you're doing, of course, but I find it quite useful when I'm working with the user manuals or technical schematics or something like that. So a very, very welcome addition. Next to it, we have the table of contents, and the table of contents functions pretty much exactly the same for either a PDF or an EPUB type of document. So I'm gonna open up a document that I know has a really good table of contents. That's not the case for all of the contents or all of the books. This is not the device's fault. It's interpreting table of contents properly, but if a document doesn't have a table of contents, it can't really do anything about it. Don't expect it to generate a table of contents for you. That's just not going to happen. However, if you have a document that has a proper table of contents, it has been improved significantly, and I think that it functions in a really good way. In a previous OS version, there was a bit of an issue of touch responsiveness for these expanding arrows, but that, as you can see, has been improved massively, and now it just works properly. Even for my fat, dry fingers, it just responds in a proper way. You have the ability to simply go through sub-chapters as well, and really navigate in an easy way by sliding up and down. You're able to reorder or reverse the order of the table of contents if that's what you're looking for. You can expand to full page if you want, or retract back to normal one, but that's not all. It actually offers quite a lot more, because in the table of contents you can switch to bookmarks, and okay, this document doesn't have bookmarks. For example, if I were to add maybe a couple of bookmarks here, and let's just go like there, and if I go to table of contents and bookmarks, my bookmarks will be shown here, and furthermore they will be automatically named by the chapter that they were found in, and also it will display the page and what they are about. You have the trash icon to trash them, but more importantly, you are able to rename the bookmarks the way you want it to by simply clicking on this icon here and then typing in the name that you want. Let's say that you're in a document where you've made a lot of markings and annotations. Table of content will help you with that as well, and these three dots, they are consistent with the three dots that I find here. So basically that means that I can switch to my annotations, and if I have annotations in my document, they will be listed here. Now we have additional functionality for each or all of the annotations themselves, which is super useful. Each of the annotation ads here have these three icons, and basically the first icon is a select checkbox if you want to select it or not. You have the ability to edit the annotation itself by pressing the second button, and then I can add my annotation yet again. Okay, and then I can update it, or I can delete it. Furthermore, at the bottom here, we have the ability to select all of the annotations. As you can see now, they're all selected. I can delete all of them, but most importantly, I am able to export my annotations to the local storage or to other cloud accounts. And other cloud accounts are your OneNote, Evernote, Dropbox, Onyx account, or something else. So a huge variety of options, and I think they are exported as text files. So that's a super important functionality that I think is an excellent thing that it has been added. So just remember to use these little icons so that you can manage your annotations and your document to its fullest potential. Finally, we have the scribbles. So basically any written type of content that I have been writing down, the pages where any writing has been done will be listed here, and you can navigate, you can select them, delete them, or export them as well. So for example, I could select multiple pages here, click on export, and they can be exported either as PNF or as a PDF. So that's a very, very cool addition as well, because you don't have to export the entire document. You can just export the pages that you want, where you have your notes, so that people can review them in a proper way. Overall, I think it's a fantastic functionality of the table of contents, because it just completes the user experience in a really, really good way. Next, we have the formatting options, and the format is different between PDFs and EPUBs. So for example, now I'm in a PDF and you'll see that I have format and navigation. But if I switch back to an EPUB, there's going to be only a format option. So let's go through all of the options and what formatting functionalities do we have on the Nova 2 and the Boox 2.3 update. So let's say that we're looking at a standard page and we're gonna go into the format. We have 3 tabs that we can choose from. So we can choose from typeface, format, or spacing style. In typeface, we can change the format size, and you can see again that that octa-core 2 GHz CPU is an absolute monster. It is able to change things of the entire book so quickly and so immediately that it's just truly impressive. Then you're able to change the font of the entire document, and you have 232 built-in fonts. And if that's not enough for you, you can also load in your custom fonts, and more on that when we're talking about the storage section. Then you can also, if you load up your custom fonts and maybe they don't render in a proper way, you have 18 different encoding types. So the best thing is to use it for automatic, and it will actually be able to determine the best way to encode your fonts, so that they display correctly. And lastly, we have the indentation option on or off. If it's off, new paragraphs will not be indented, but if the indentation is turned on, the new paragraphs will have the indentation on. Next, we have the format, and in the format we have the pagination style. So we can display a single page just vertically, or we can split it into 2 rows basically. Again, the same page is displayed on a single screen, it's just laid out in a different way. Then we have the rotation or the orientation, which functions exactly the same as the global orientation that I've already demonstrated. And then you have separate control for image contrast, text contrast, and embolden. So if I wanted to, I could simply adjust my text contrast independently of the image, and I can adjust the embolden amount here as well. So it's something that is truly amazing, and again expands on the overall usability and functionality of the device, makes it a truly enjoyable experience to use. Lastly, we have the spacing style, and you can adjust your line spacing to however you may want, and also your paragraph spacing. And again, here the octa-core CPU just shines through, because you feel free to actually reorient things and just make it, for example, maybe I just want a little bit more margins on the side so that it fits my reading needs in a better way. Absolutely spectacular functionality here, and I think the octa-core CPU is not an overkill, because it makes these types of operations a complete breeze, and it does make a difference on a day-to-day use. It really does make a difference. Now onto a PDF type of a document, and let's see what kind of formatting do we have for PDFs. This type of formatting will apply to PDF, DJVU, CBR, and CBZ formats, I believe, and maybe some others. So you can have several different types of pagination options. First one is 1 page per screen. Then you have the scroll option, and for the scroll option I'm just gonna switch to the A2 mode so that we have slightly faster display. But when I'm in scroll mode, I'm able to freely scroll through the document as opposed to page flipping, which is something that really works well for me. Then let's go back to normal mode. Then we have basically the same type of layout of reading 2 pages per screen, and they can be laid out left to right or right to left, depending on what type of document and what type of standard you are using. Underneath the pagination, we have the orientation, again functioning exactly the same as the global orientation or the EPUB orientation. Then we have zoom functionalities, so we can zoom in or zoom out up to a degree, but the one that's by far most usable is the zoom region tool. So here I can zoom in like this, for example, and I can say OK. Now I see all of this very nicely, but here's the thing that's really cool. My navigation now no longer flips a page, but actually it will first use this zoomed in region to scroll it through the page, and once I reach the end of the page, then it will flip. So I can just continue scrolling and reading through the areas of the document. So now this is until it flips to the next page finally. So this is something that's really, really useful. I can just reset here. So I find this incredibly useful because I use a lot of PDFs in my readers, and they are either scanned documents or of various different formats, and sometimes they can be super tiny, and on a smaller device like this it could be a problem, but because of these functionalities it's not a problem at all. Then we have crop, so it can be the original crop, like how the format of the document is, or you can maximize it automatically so that it's actually filling out the screen, but that nothing is being cut out, or you can reset your crop and get back to normal. And finally, if you find a document that has just a little bit bleeding on the sides, you can adjust the margins a little bit to kind of detach the document from the edges of the screen. And that's just the display. Now we get to contrast. And for the PDFs, we have separate control for removing the watermarks. We can sharpen the images. We can separately control the image contrast. We can do text contrast, and we can embolden as well. This is absolutely spectacular. Again, because I use so many different PDF types that are not standardized, these controls are absolutely a godsend, and yet again they elevate this device into a completely different category of its own as far as reader capabilities go. We also have the ability to reflow the documents. Now this is the only one that's not real-time, simply because it has to reprocess the entire document, but you have the option of reflowing from left to right to left, or top to bottom, and it doesn't work maybe exactly as you expected. For example, if I reflow from top to bottom, what's going to happen is basically I'm going to flip the document to a landscape format, and it's going to be kind of divided like this. So I'm not entirely sure how this reflowing is being calculated, but what I do know is that you have the options of adjusting the spacing, line spacing, alignment, and the font size and the amount of columns that you want. So for example, let's say that I had a document that had very, very small font size. Maybe I can just increase it to 3, and then I will be able to have a much more readable type of document. So for example, maybe I want to have 3 columns per page, or each page to be divided into 3 columns, and maybe I want more spacing so it's more readable. So I am allowed to completely reorganize and reformat my PDF documents regardless of what they were like before. Now finally, you can also reset to the original, and in the More button you have the option of correcting the tilting. So if you have a document that's all in italics, you have the ability to actually tilt the correction. I believe these are 5 and 10 degree options. I don't have a document of that sort to actually show it, but the option is there. There's also, for the PDFs, there's the option of navigation, and that's my personal favorite, to be honest, because while the formatting and reflowing is nice, this is by far the most practical option that I use all of the time. So what it does is actually it's going to divide your page of the document into 4 sub-frames, so to speak, and then your page navigations basically switch from one frame to another. reader, which is incredibly useful, especially on a smaller format like this. So you'll notice that we have reset, which of course resets to your default page format, but we also have comic and article mode. And I'm not going to go into comic and article mode yet, simply because they are presets, but here's what they do. If you press comic, it says 1, 2, 3, 4. And basically what that means is, first you will be able to see the frame number 1, then page next is going to go to page frame number 2, 3, 4. And the article mode is the other way around. It actually goes left to right, but up in columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And neither of these is something that I use most often. The one that I use most often is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, because it allows me to just cycle through the document itself. And in all honesty, the one that I use absolutely most often is this one, horizontally divided 1, 2, because the PDFs that I use are actually of a smaller format with some small prints and scans and all sorts of things. But here's the versatility of it. You can divide it into columns, rows, 4 frames, 6 frames, 6 vertical frames, and it can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, blah, 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 and 9 frames. But that's not everything. Then you can change the ordering of these frames. So you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, or from right to left, 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can go top down, 1, 2, 3, 4, left, right fashion, or again columns, but in the right to left, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And it works flawlessly for any type of organization that you might have. This is absolutely the perfect way I think every single PDF and document reader should function, because it's absolutely spectacular. And this is something that I use absolutely all of the time when working on it. And basically, if you have some concerns over the smaller size of the Nova 2, I think that the navigation function itself just completely eliminates that. At least for me, it completely eliminates any concerns or negatives that you may have with the smaller format. And we're not done yet. Now, the split view and scribble, they're the same for EPUBs or PDFs or any other types of documents. So we can go to split view, and a split view has a couple of different modes. So you're able to actually view the current document side by side. And what that allows you is to actually be able to navigate different areas of the same document completely independently. So technically what happens in any mode of the dual split screen is basically you're running 2 readers at the same time, and you can access their options independently. You exit the split screen mode by pressing the back button once. So let's explore the other options. Then you have the current document and the other document. And the other document can be of any type of format as well. So you can check and read a PDF on my left side and the EPUB book on the right side. Now let's say that maybe I wanted to swap this. Well, you can do that by tapping on the middle, going to the options and clicking swap. Whoops, now they're swapped. So now I have my PDF document on one side and the EPUB on the other side. And the swap works equally on the left or on the right side. Next, we have the current document and notes. Now, when you enter this type of functionality, what it actually does is it automatically creates a notebook that is associated with the document that you are using. And the document can be a book or a PDF or whatever. And that notebook is always recalled when you load that same document. So they're always connected. However, what's really important to note is, and we're going to get back to it when we talk about the notebooks, is that you have independent control and freedom to edit your notebook outside of the document, and you won't actually lose the connection between the notebook and the note itself. It's extremely useful type of thing. So remember, these are two separate documents, and if the question arises, can I export my notes with my document? Yes, of course, but they are simply a different document, so you need to export them as well. And finally, in the split screen option, we have current document and translate option. And this is super useful. Let's turn the Wi-Fi on. And as soon as Wi-Fi is turned on, this will actually start to work. What it does is it translates the page that you are at, and it translates using the translation engine that you want to use. Currently we have Baidu and Google Translate, and you have between, let's see, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 6, 30 languages to choose from. And these are the languages that you can actually use. All right. Oh no, it's actually 26 languages that you can choose from. Hopefully more is added later. And you have the ability to increase the font of the translation or decrease it depending on what you want. And if the translation is, let's say, let's find a page that's longer. If the translation doesn't fit on a single page, then you can flip between pages, either by using the arrows here, or your standard navigation will also work. Well, what's important to understand is that you cannot navigate the document by flipping pages in the translation. The actual navigation of the document is always done in the document itself. This is simply the translator function, and it mirrors what's happening in the document itself. And last but not least, we have the scribble option, which functions exactly the same again on EPUBs or any of the document types. And you have the pen control, which is limited but very functional. So what's there is really, really good. So you have the pressure sensitive brush that is very nicely responsive depending on the brush size that you actually choose. And let's lower this to number 2. Or you have the pressure insensitive pencil tool, which is always the same. The back of the pen works as an eraser, which is really cool. Or you could actually press the button and then draw, and it functions as an eraser as well, this button here. In the brush tools, you're also able to draw basic geometric forms such as a line, a triangle, square, or a circle, and it works pretty much the same. You select the tool and then you actually draw it. And the only thing to note is that the square and circle are actually ellipse and rectangles, which I think is quite useful because then you can add some text in here and it can be erased in the same manner as any type of a brush. We have color options, and Nova 2 offers a huge palette, no pun intended. Even though it's a grayscale display, it offers you 3 shades of gray, black, white, and also the primary colors red, green, and blue. Now, because this is a monochrome display, the red, green, and blue will always display black on the screen itself here on the device. However, when they are exported, then they are actually displayed on color devices. They're displayed in these colors. We have the erase mode, so we can erase strokes, or erase an entire page. We have undo, redo. We can save the documents with all of the stuff that's been done to it. And we can export, and the export is an option where you can actually embed everything into the PDF, which is the default setting. So by default, everything that you scribble is going to be embedded into the original PDF, or you can save as a separate document where everything that you've drawn is going to be embedded into a separate PDF, therefore allowing you to have the original document and the document that's been edited. That's the same scribble tool, is exactly accessible from the floater menu and this menu here. Lastly, you also have a really important functionality, which is the zoom feature. So I can now zoom in into a region. Let's say that I wanted to zoom in around here, and I go OK. And now I can use my brush and write something really small. right? And now when I zoom out, that writing will be very small. It allows you to add fine details and fine notes to the documents regardless of what their format is. So that's a super useful thing. Overall, I think that the reader capability of Nova 2 is absolutely stunning. It's something that's completely mind-blowing, and it's a complete joy to use. Next, from the functions, we have the store. There is no option of purchasing anything. Everything in the store is for free, and it's a very large, basically, selection of classical titles. You can select categories from non-fiction and fiction. Now, granted, there are some inconsistencies. For example, I found Einstein in fiction, and in non-fiction reference books, one of the first titles is basically Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I didn't know that was that was non-fiction. Must have been quite an experience for Lewis Carroll. One of the things that I'm really missing is the ability to have the same search function that we have at the at the top of the menu here, but to be able to actually search within a category or within a subcategory. That would be nice. And also some additional options of actually filtering by our author and all that kind of stuff. I think that would actually be quite cool to have, because there are some really nice and interesting titles here available. So it's a shame not to have complete access to them just because of the no filtering or anything like that. But you can always use the search function at the top, and that's it. It's just that the filtering, I found that the filtering options lead to discovery of books and titles that you haven't been looking for. So that's something that basically it would make possible. Next, we have the note-taking or notebook functionality. And when you get into the note function, you are presented with a very similar overview and very similar functionality like within the library, except that it shows you your notebooks. You can sort notebooks by recent, by local, and also by document notebooks. Now, this is what I was mentioning before. When you enter a split view between a document and a note, notebook is automatically created, and it's not any type of a notebook. It's actually a document type of notebook that you can list through by using this option here. And you can see that they are basically they mimic exactly what you see in the split view as well. More importantly, for example, this one is associated with the Infinity Child's My Observations. So maybe I want to rename this to My Notes. So I'm now renaming the notebook that's associated with the book we talked about, and I am going to add some more notes here. And if I go back into the library, go to my books, and I go to Infinity's Child, which is the one that I was writing for. And if I now go into split view and notes, you'll see that the note is here, and the association stays even though I renamed the notebook. And also whatever I add and modify in the notebook itself is of course retained, because these are two separate applications running at the same time, the notebook and the reader itself. Then you have the sync option with the Onyx Boox cloud, and the whole point with the sync is that your content on the server cloud is always kept in sync with the local content and vice versa. So no matter what you update from where, once everything is synced, then you know that you have exact same images on both locations. We have the search icon, which I'll come back to, but for organization tools we have adding a folder, so you can sort your notebooks in folders, and you also have the same type of multi-select functionality like with the library, except that now we can export, sync, move, delete, and of course cancel the multi-select mode. In the additional options, we can also adjust our sync settings. We can filter through our visible notebooks, and we have the additional settings which are quite important. Now, There's a reason why I skipped over the search icon, simply because, well, look at this. I have an option to search note titles or search notes. That's right, you can search your handwritten notes. So let's say I go testing, because I know I wrote somewhere testing. What Nova 2 is actually doing now is going through all of the notebooks, doing text conversion and comparing to find all of the results it can actually find for the word or the phrase that I inputted here. Of course, it takes time because it's doing something huge, but let's not forget what we are witnessing here. This is a complete game changer in note-taking functionality, because up until now, I don't know of another device that actually is able to do this and to do it this well. You're able to do a word search on your handwritten notes. This is an absolute game changer, and I love this thing. Furthermore, if you go into the settings, we have AI recognition language settings here. And when I go into the AI recognition language, you have 59 languages to choose from to do text recognition from your notes. And I tested it, my native language is Serbian, so I tested both Cyrillic and Latinic, and it just recognizes it and it works. It equally works well. So if you have a notebook that is written in a different language and you would like text recognition to work like that, this is where you would actually set it up. You would download the package that you're interested in, and then you would set it as an active one. I don't think it can automatically detect languages as well. I think that would be asking for a little bit too much. So it's a good idea to not mix and match languages in your notebooks if this is the feature that you're going to be using a lot. But even as it is, it's just like absolutely spectacular. In the settings, valid options to also mention and not get distracted by this monstrously amazing functionality is the stylus calibration. So this is basically where you will do your stylus calibration. You have backup and recover options, notepad password settings, automatic AI recognition in the background, which I kind of recommend you actually use. Yes, it will use some battery and processing options, but if this is a thing that you're going to be using a lot, if text recognition is the thing that you're going to be using a lot, it actually saves time because it's translating as you go along. So when you do a search or when you do a page AI translation, it's much faster. So it just makes sense to actually use that, keep this turned on if it's a thing that you're going to be using a lot. Generally very useful stuff, but I tend to get completely mind blown and distracted by that search functionality because, oh my, that thing just changes everything, for me at least. It really is a complete game changer. So how does the writing experience look like? The writing experience is actually quite nice, as I say here. I would like to address the stylus that it comes with. It's not the best, and at this point, you know that I've complained about it in the Note 2. In the Nova 2 even more so, because the quality, overall quality impression level of the device and the experience is elevated to, in my mind at least, and the way I see it, more than Note 2 as well. And then this pen is simply out of place. That's my main problem with it. It functions perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it, and I love the fact that it has a button for the erase and it has an eraser. Everything that you need is there, so functionality wise it's fine, but the quality is not that great, and I tend to press pens that I write with, and this one tends to flex quite a bit as I press with my thumb, and I always have this kind of feeling that it might break when I'm writing. And that's not a thing that you have with the rest of the device. The rest of the experience is rock solid, really high quality, and then you grab the pen and it just simply is out of place. So that's my only gripe with it. It doesn't seem to belong to the overall package, and I wish that we see actually Onyx Boox taking a slightly different approach to the supplied stylus and pens in their future product, because the products are now really amazing, and I think that they, by default, such an amazing product such as a Nova 2 deserves a slightly better quality pen, in my opinion. With the Note 2 and the writing experience, I had three main issues. Number one was the glass screen and the plastic tip on the glass screen. Writing experience was suboptimal. Just, you know, to put it mildly. It was slippery and all over the place, and there's nothing you can actually do to overcome the fact that you're writing with the plastic tip on a glass screen. Granted, you can put a screen protector on and then it's a little bit better, but not that much. Nova 2, I was expecting more of the same, but no, it actually surprised me. Yes, it is a glass screen. First of all, not only are the reflections different, it's more diffuse, but the actual surface that you're writing on is no longer so glassy. So don't get me wrong, it's still glass, but it's not as smooth and as unpleasantly smooth as it was on the other devices, or for example on iPad, which I find completely awful. Here, when I write, there's absolutely no question that there's this glass and plastic smoothness there, but there's something to it. It's a little bit more fine, and there's a little bit more resistance, and there's a little bit more sound as well, and it just feels a little bit better than the Note 2. Now, the second thing that was a turn off for me in Note 2 was the thickness of the glass and the perceived disconnect between the tip of the pen and where the stroke that you're writing is actually appearing. Now, in Nova 2, and maybe this is an update from 2.3, I don't know, because I no longer have Note 2, but in Nova 2 this is not visibly present. And I believe that it's not just the case that it's a thinner layer of glass, because it definitely is a little bit thinner, but I think they did something incredibly intelligent here. It looks like they've actually recalibrated where the stroke will appear in relation to your pen tip, so that they're actually compensating the thickness of the glass. The end result is, I don't care what they did. What they did could be even magic for all I care, but the end result is the perceived disconnect between the tip of the pen and the writing surface is now gone. And that, to me at least, is a huge improvement and a really, really important difference when comparing the writing experience to the previous writing experience that I had with Note 2. And the third part, which was also present in Note 2, was the screen responsiveness and the speed of writing. I haven't been measuring them, but working from memory and from some of the video material that I've done before, when I compare it to this, it is a little bit faster. So I don't know if Nova 2 is actually faster or not, but all of these three things combined, the overall perception and the overall writing experience is more comfortable, more precise, more connected with the surface, and it feels more immediate. I didn't think that Nova 2 and the update 2.3 would be actually offering such a significant improvement to my last visit with this ecosystem, but they do. When you couple all of this, like a properly good writing experience, undeniably good writing experience on this device, with all of the other functionalities, that's something that should get other competitors quite concerned. Because, yeah, what this device is offering is absolutely amazing. But let's not get distracted, let's go through everything else. But before I go through all of these, there have been some requests before, and people complaining that they can't really find a reference of how does it look like when you're writing on a device like this. So I'm just going to write a paragraph here for reference sake so that people can have that. So here we go, and I'm going to cue in some kind of elevator type of music while I write this. Hopefully that helps those who are looking for this sort of thing. Now let's go over to the overall functionality and the layout. You have the top bar, you have the function bar, and you have the content area, like a standard type of thing that you have overall in the device. First of all, you have the minimize and maximize button, and it works as you expect it to, except that I really want to make a note here that it does it a little bit better than the competitors. Why? Because the whole note scales. So even if I'm using my toolbars, they are not eating away at the space that is allocated for the note itself. So that means that they're not overlapping my notes. So because if I go to full screen, you'll see that it actually scales up. If I go to toolbar mode, it scales down. At any given point, no matter what I'm doing, I have the full overview of my notes, which is a really, really important thing, and it's not the case in all of the devices that are out there. Next to it, we have the ability to rename our notes by pressing on that icon, and then you can just type it in. We can sync the note, we can search the note for the word. So let's say I go what, and then I perform a search, and now it's doing a search, and because I have the AI search in the background, it has already done the text recognition, and you've seen how fast this was. This was almost instantaneous, and that's pretty much amazing. And of course, it finds this. One note though, I don't know what these symbols are doing. I've scoured the internet and I've checked the user manual and everything. I simply can't find any reference, and I've tried out like drawing out the symbols and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what these symbols in the search are doing, and I wish I knew. So if somebody does, please give me a heads up, because I'm really, really interested to know what does the triangle, square, star, this little thingy with the dots, and the this looks to me like a three-dimensional axis grid kind of thing. What do these do? Maybe these are like different AI methods? I don't know. But either way, yeah, if somebody has an info on this, that would be greatly appreciated. Then, yeah, if I no longer want to do search, I just press back and I'm back into my document. I can undo, redo, and I can navigate the pages and basically flip through the pages of my notebook by going onto the arrows, or I can press on the number itself and then type in the number of the page that I want to use. Directly associated with this is the page navigation function, and the page navigation is not just navigation, this is page management of your notebook, and it's pretty much perfect, which again is not the case in all of the competitors. So let's begin with the basics. You can select one page and then you can move the page easily forward or back within the notebook. You can also select the move option, and then you can make the selected page or pages move to first page, last page, or any page within the notebook. So let's say, for example, that you had a chapter of written notes, and then you select those pages of your chapter, and then you just press the move icon and you can move it wherever you want. You're free to reorder and reorganize your notebook however you see fit. So there's no anxiety related issues of thinking like, oh, where am I going to put this? It doesn't matter. Just take your notes and reorganize it afterwards. It makes it possible for you. And that's how it should work, but unfortunately it doesn't on all of the devices. This is the only one that actually has the most complete experience that I've actually seen so far. And also you have the ability to select individual pages or some pages of your notebook and export them as a separate PDF. So you don't have to export the entire document and then maybe cut it. You can actually just select a section of your notebook, export that as a PDF, and that's it. And finally, of course, you have the ability to delete the pages, single or multiple pages. Then we have the brush tool, which is exactly the same as the scribble tool in the reader. So we have the pressure sensitive, pressure insensitive tool, line, triangle, ellipse, and rectangle with the line width applied. Then we have a more comprehensive eraser tool because it allows for it to work like a moving eraser, like an eraser brush. Then you have a stroke eraser, then you have an area eraser, and erase the whole page as well. The colors are exactly the same functionality as with the scribble. So we have 3 shades of gray, black, white, red, green, and blue. And the same rules apply. Red, green, and blue will be displayed black on the device itself, but upon exporting the notebook as a PDF or whatever, these the strokes that you've written in red, green, or blue will mimic that color. Then we have the select tool, which again works perfectly. So you can just select what you want, and that selection can then be moved, rotated, or scaled uniformly or non-uniformly. It cannot be mirrored, so negative scale doesn't do mirroring, which is a shame. But other than that, you have pretty much all of the options, and on the top you have additional few tools, which is undo, redo for the transforms that you've done, and then you have the color option. Now, for this selection, it doesn't really matter, but let's say that you have your notes. You can actually make a selection of a paragraph of handwritten notes and turn those notes into red, green, blue, or whatever it is that you may want. Incredibly useful. Then you can also copy, paste your selection, and of course delete it. And I am able to select this, copy, and then I can go to another page. I can paste it in this page if I wanted to, which works fine, or I can also get out of the document entirely, go to a new document, and if I go to the lasso tool, it is still in the buffer, and I can paste the same selection into other documents as well. After that, we have the zoom function, which functions pretty much exactly the same like on the other ones, except that you have also pinch to zoom in and out. So by default, pinch to zoom is off for a good reason, because when you have your palm in around, then it can actually zoom around when you don't want it to. But if you wanted to, you can pinch to zoom, and then I can zoom in, let's say around here, and it zooms around the center that you want it to. And at that point, I can just start writing. Then I would actually disable the pinch so that it doesn't interfere with my stuff, and then I write something small, right? And then I can zoom out all the way through. Or I could have turned on the pinch and then zoomed out that way. So zoom also is an excellent functionality for adding tiny little details for notes or whatever it is that you may want. Or if you're drawing or sketching, then for adding details. Now, the colors and this zoom feature do invite you to want to do some sketching, but in all honesty, I think that the lack of brushes is simply something that discourages at least me from doing any more impressive type of or in-depth types of drawings. So for sketching, I think it's more than enough. For note-taking, it's absolutely perfect. But for drawings, lack of layers and lack of additional brushes maybe don't make it optimal for that type of use. But then again, it's not even pretending to do that. So yeah, I mean, but you can definitely try and do stuff. Then we have a text box tool, which is basically a box where you can input your text and add multiple lines, right? And then I can just select this one and maybe scale it up. And because I have multi-lines and I have formatting options, I can actually say, all right, I want this to be of font size maybe 24. It will automatically rescale and reformat. It's like, whoa, that's too big. Let's go back here and adjust my line spacing to be a little bit more, adjust the color of the text to whatever I want to, make it bold, underline, or italic. And again, you can do copy paste in the same notebook, other pages, and other notebooks as well, or you can delete it. Then we have the AI, which you've already seen some of the functionalities of the AI, but it actually has a couple of different types of things. So let's get to a page where it has some written type of stuff. Yeah, let's try and do this. So if I go into AI and I go to original AI recognition, again, because of the background recognition, it's immediate. And furthermore, you're able to go between the pages and actually flip the pages of your notebook with the AI recognition turned on, so the text recognition would actually be working. Now, has, of course, with the scribbles and all that kind of stuff, it's not going to be the best, but with the writing, it's incredibly good. Yes, there are a couple of things that are maybe a little bit off, but when you're actually writing in a normal way, then it just is almost flawless. Now, one thing that you've definitely noticed is that the formatting is a little bit weird and off. So each of these recognized lines is a separate text box, basically, and then you have these types of options. What you have as an additional option in the AI is reflow recognition. So what this does is it recognizes everything, but it puts it all into basically a text editor type of thing. However, once you do reflow recognition, the recognition is good, but you are responsible for reformatting your text. So you do have that added step of adjusting the formatting of the document manually. Now, that's not a big deal, considering that you can actually do this and then just export it as a PDF text or share as a PDF or a text file, which is absolutely amazing. And what it technically becomes is a text editor, which is awesome. So don't forget that you can actually use this as a text editor as well, because as soon as it has recognized these things, I can now begin and let's move this a little out of the way. And if I wanted to now type, I can simply, I can use the tablet for typing my text. And then you can just simply share that in any format that you want. It would be nice, I think, that the reflow is absolutely amazing, and that's the one that I use most of the time. However, because I use it all the time, it does take a little bit of time to adjust that formatting, and I wish maybe that some of the future updates actually either add a functionality of being able to recognize the spaces or the paragraphs themselves automatically, or because I'm willing to learn things, I wouldn't be opposed to having the option of actually drawing a specific symbol. I don't know, let's say this is the symbol for this is a symbol for a new line, and when the AI recognition actually runs into this symbol, it says, oh, that's actually a paragraph, and it automatically does some formatting for you. Now, that wouldn't be a problem at all, and that would actually make it even more powerful to use. Then we have the templates, and you have these are the default these are the default templates that come with the Nova 2, but you have the option of easily placing your own local templates. So basically, when you make a template and you put it in a specific folder, which is easy to find, they will automatically appear here, or you can actually load some from the cloud where you have additional options as well. So for example, if you wanted to, you could download the black one, and then I can choose to use a black template, and I can choose to use a white pen, go full screen, and write white on black. I've tried that with some other ones and it didn't really turn out that great. On Remarkable you can do it, on Supernote unfortunately you can't because of the color layering, but I think they're fixing that, and so that should be an option on the Supernote as well. But this is super cool. I love how this looks with the black outline and everything. It's just so sexy and smooth. The icons actually work. It's not such a big deal. I would think that it would kind of interfere, but it actually does switch to a white outline, and then it makes sense. So it is able to do this in a normal way. So technically speaking, if you wanted to, you could make like a black template with white lines or grayish type of lines, and then use that if you wanted to. You can also easily apply a template for the entire document, and you do that by going here. These two check boxes. So if you check all, when you apply a template, it will apply to the entire document. So in this case, yeah, I can't really see it because I've written white over black here, but oh my god, this is so cool. You can actually write secret messages. Oh, that's so sweet. Get this. So you write like your notes, right, normally, but then you actually switch to the black template, and wow, it's actually displayed here. It's like the invisible ink in the digital era. This is so cool. I love it. And then you go like, oh, that's for secret messages and things, and then you quickly hide it and now it's gone. It just looks like some kind of things here. Sweet. All right, back to serious stuff. This icon here, the exclamation mark, if you tap on it, it will display the local template path, storage note template, and that's where you need to place your custom templates for them to appear when you put them in local. And cloud template path means storage note template cloud, and these will be uploaded to the cloud as well. You can upload PDF or PNG templates, except that the PDF templates do not support Onyx Cloud Sync option. So if you want to synchronize and share, then it should be a PNG type of a template. And finally, if your local templates are deleted and your notebook is using them, it's not going to throw an error. Instead, it's going to default to an already built-in type of template, most likely a blank one. So your notebook is not ruined if you reorganize, lose, or accidentally delete your local templates, which is not the case with all of the devices. So it's a really good thing that's implemented as well. We have the palm rejection as well, so you can, or touch enable disable. We can refresh the screen, and we can add a new page or delete the page that you are currently at. And of course, we have some additional options where you can save the current notebook that you're working on. You can export either the single page, which would be effectively a screenshot, or you can export all pages as a PDF. And you also have an option, if you're using the Onyx Boox account, you can share to email or the account, actually, no, only to the Onyx Boox. But then again, for emailing, that's not a problem. I'll just export it as a PDF, go to my Gmail app in here, and then send it out because it's an Android device. So it really is not a limiting thing. Then you can also insert a picture, and it can be transformed in the same way as the selection transform. You can swap where the toolbar will be. Is it going to be on the left hand side or the right hand side? And finally, you can also customize your toolbar so that you can reorder icons, remove them, add other ones depending on your use case scenarios. Whew. Like, how cool is this? I'm blown away, because with everything here, last time I was checking it, some of the features and the writing experience and everything just wasn't the right combination for me, at least. But everything here on Nova 2, again, everything is elevated to a whole nother level, and it just is a very unique and such a complete experience that I don't know if it does have a competitor at the moment. For an overall type of thing, I really don't know. So that's the notebook, and overall, hopefully you get a good impression of what this device is capable of. One other note, I tried the Supernote pen on the Nova 2, and it works, but it's not pressure sensitive. So yeah, and also I didn't feel comfortable using a very hard plastic tip on a glass screen. So if I were to actually buy a second pen, which I most likely will, I would actually try and find a pen that was designed to work with the glass screen, so that I can get a best experience. Next we have the storage functionality, and the storage is pretty much standard Android type of file explorer, but it's extremely welcome because you are able to explore your files and manipulate them and basically organize them, and basically you have control over your device. Now, what would you use this for? Well, mainly for imported images, music files, and all that kind of stuff. For example, for me, I went into the pictures and I made a My Screensavers type of a folder where I put in my custom PNG screensavers that I want to use. And once I put it in, so this is my image, right? And it's going to display the image and open it up in a nice way. So you can also preview the image, but you can, more importantly, you can long press on the image and you can rename, open with, but you can set as a screensaver. And once you go to set as a screensaver, there are 3 standby images that it will cycle through, and you can have a custom power off image. And it's as simple as drag and drop an image into your custom folder wherever you want it, and simply long press set as screensaver. It's supposed to function this simply. There's no reason why it wouldn't. So this is an excellent way of doing things. And also you can just play your music, organize your music files, and all of that kind of stuff. So storage works really good, and also has one other functionality that can be interesting. So for example, if I go into let's say my books and then my user manuals, this is where I'm going to place my user manuals, but I don't feel like digging in, right? I can long press and hold on a folder, and I can just make a shortcut. And once I make a shortcut, now whenever I go to the root of the storage, I have my shortcut to the folder that I want it to. And then I can just simply press it, and there's no need to actually dig into the folder structure. So if you have even a more complicated, organized, deep folder structure, is fully supported with the use of this shortcut. So it can be used in a really good way. You can also display it as a list or as icons, and of course the analytics are here. The statistics are native to the storage area here. Another awesome thing is the ability to simply plug in the USB-C cable that's connected to your computer, and after a few seconds it simply appears here, and you can double click and enter, and basically all that you see here is actually your storage folder here. So you can enter the storage, and let's say if I go into the pictures folder and I find my pictures folder here, if I create a new folder and I name it my new folder and press enter, it will be, as soon as I refresh and go back in here, it's automatically reflected. Similarly, I'm allowed to actually delete this from here, and if I refresh here, it's gonna be gone. So the communication is normal, and you can just use it completely naturally and normally as you would. One thing to note is that once you actually hook it up to the USB, as I mentioned before, in the notifications area, this is where you will have this notification where you can actually choose what type of USB connection you want to use in the device itself. So that's in your notifications area. It's an important thing to remember. So overall, it's a very complete experience. Next we have the apps function, and you can think of the apps functionality as like 2 parallel worlds. You have the Onyx Boox app world, which has its own app store as well, and all of these optimized plain looking icons are related to the app store that's related to Onyx Boox. Or you can, once your Google Play Store is enabled, then you can have Google Play Store, and then you have fully iconed apps, and those are basically originating from the Google Play Store. One thing to mention is that the Google Play Store needs to be enabled for the very first time and linked to the device and the account. Once that's done, it functions exactly the same like any other Android device, and you have full access to everything on the App Store. One thing that I would mention is that when you are in a non-optimized environment such as the Google App Store, I would really advise you to actually switch to the A2 mode, simply because, as you can see, it becomes a lot better experience. and it's something that you can most definitely use. If you choose to, you could also go to the X mode, which certainly is faster. But for me, the speed that you gain is simply not enough to warrant the added ghosting and the image degradation. So for me, A2 mode works more than fine. And then you can just simply get into any of the apps, install them, and use them as you normally would, because essentially, underneath the e-ink display, this is a normal Android 9 tablet. A really, really powerful Android 9 tablet. One last thing that I'd like to mention regarding the apps is the navigation ball itself. So the awesome little navigation ball that I love so much, this is where you'll find it. So you'll find it in the apps, navigation ball, and when you tap, this is where you actually can set things up. So let me just switch back to normal mode, so that we don't have the ghosting. And this is where you can enable, disable it. You can change the navigation ball style between fan-shaped, horizontal, or vertical style. You can check the transparency options as well. And you have 9 icons or 9 buttons to choose from. You don't have to use all 9. You can just use 2. You just clear out all the other ones to none. And you can simply assign whatever you want to any of the buttons. So things that you can assign is, first of all, open any app that you have on the whole tablet, or you can choose one of these functions in the following 3 pages. So incredibly robust functionality, and when it's coupled with the ability to actually minimize it and dock it to the side, it's just an amazing little tool. Super productive, super functional, and a huge welcome update to the overall Onyx Boox user experience. And finally, we have the settings, which are fairly standardized types of settings and nicely organized for an Android device. First of all, this is where you will find your user manual, if that's what you're looking for. Then you have your language settings, where you will change your language, keyboard input methods, and also text-to-speech output. Date and time, normally date and time. Power management is very flexible and very nice, so you're able to actually fine-tune your auto sleep and power off timeout functionalities the way you want to. Then in the network you have your Wi-Fi settings, Bluetooth, and a VPN as well. In the applications you have your standard Android type of application settings, with a notable exception. This is the place where you enable Google Play for the very first time. So if you want to use the Google Play Store, you go to Settings, Applications, and then enable Google Play. The process is really simple. It will simply generate the GSF ID and it will automatically do everything it needs to. It will simply ask for your account to log in, so that you can link the account that you want to use with the device with the Google Play Store. You wait a few minutes, and after a few minutes, there's no notification or anything, just check out the Play Store after 5-10 minutes and it should be working just normally. The account management for OneNote, Dropbox, Evernote, UDAO, and of course Onyx account. And then in more settings you have your screen's log password, and you can change the overall system display font. It can be large, middle, standard, or small. And finally, before the conclusion time, I just want to describe a couple of how-to tips and tricks. If you want to add custom dictionaries, you need to hook up your Nova 2 to the computer and then navigate to the folder Storage, Dictionaries. And then in the dictionaries, each of the dictionaries that you add from the computer will need to be stored in a folder that's correctly named. So always make a folder for a dictionary, copy the dictionary contents into that folder, and then it will be something that you can actually use. Similarly, you can add a folder called fonts, so storage fonts, and you will be able to add your custom fonts in there, and then Nova 2 will update and actually allow you to use those fonts if they're compatible. And as I've shown before, any PNG image can be used as a screensaver. It doesn't matter where it's located, you just need to navigate to it, know where it's placed, and then simply long press set as screensaver. You set it as a screensaver here, and once it's done, I'll have to navigate until I actually get from the 3 of them. So let's see if we, well, from the first. So, and then your custom screensaver is ready for you to use. As simple as that. So those are like the 3 easiest how-tos, but quite useful actually for the Nova 2. So that was a lot to cover, as usual. And let's now start wrapping up the overall impression of the Onyx Boox Nova 2. I'll start, as usual, with the cons. First con that I would like to get out of the way is the sun burn-in issue. And maybe some of you have noticed on the Instagram account that I've shared while I was actually working on the review of this, if exposed at direct sunlight, the screen actually starts developing quite a lot and almost immediately like dots all over the place. And basically what's happening is that direct sunlight is being misinterpreted by the screen as some form of input. That most definitely is an issue. However, I went online and I checked out for what other people say, and of course they are reporting it, but more importantly, there's a user on Reddit that actually was in conversation with Onyx Boox, and the support team actually supplied him with a test update which resolved that issue immediately. So I'm pretty sure that the very next update that comes to Nova 2 is going to include that fix. So worry not. Probably chances are that if you're looking at this review and you receive your Nova 2, it's probably going to be already fixed with the update that you have on your device. If it's not yet, then sit tight and the next update will most definitely fix it. But the most important thing is that it's something that's already been fixed. So we just have to receive it on our devices. The second thing that is a con is, as I mentioned, the default stylus that you get with the device. I won't drone on about it because I actually mentioned everything I wanted to say about it. The simple fact of the matter is there's nothing physically or technically wrong with the stylus. It works and it does everything that it needs to do. It just feels a little bit underclassed and out of place when compared to the awesomeness of the Nova 2 whole package. So it's just a little bit underwhelming, and my problem is that it's a little bit too flexy in the hand when you're actually working with it. Other than that, it works, but it's very, very cheap. Another negative issue is the compatibility of exported or saved PDFs. So strokes are embedded perfectly and the color and everything else works fine. Moreover, you are actually able to interact with the strokes that you've made. So you can actually select them and then you can move them around, change color and all of that kind of stuff, which is perfect. And you can do that in your reader of your choice. For example, I was trying out Lumin PDF and the Acrobat Reader. The highlights also transfer okay, but the color of the highlight doesn't transfer. So the highlight actually transfers, the highlight type transfers like a line or the whole thing. However, the color doesn't translate correctly. For me, in both readers, the black color was exported as yellow for whatever reason. Redaction didn't work. That also just translated as a yellow highlight. And the annotations, the highlighted portion didn't export at all, and there were no notes associated with the document at all. Same story goes with the bookmarks. If I go into the bookmark tab, there are no bookmarks present. That's an area that really needs some improvement so that all of the awesome functionality that's offered in the reader of the Nova 2 can actually be exported and forwarded further out of the Nova environment. And I hope that future updates will bring that surely, since that's simply a software compatibility issue and that's something that should be an easy thing to fix. Other than those, pros are so numerous that I have to cut them down to just the most exceptional ones. And the most exceptional one without any competition is going to have to be the ability to text search your handwritten notes. That's just absolutely out of this world, and it changes the functionality of the device entirely. It's just a super powerful thing, and the ability to actually do text recognition in multiple languages as well, it's just staggering. So a huge plus there. Battery life, like the Note 2, it lasts forever. It's just a really good battery capacity and battery management here, and I don't have a problem imagining that this thing can last for weeks, maybe even like a month, depending on how much it's used during the day. Reader capabilities are absolutely staggering as well. Pretty much anything I can think of is there, and as soon as they are able to actually fix the PDF compatibility issues of exporting the PDF further to get the annotations, bookmarks and all that stuff that I mentioned, then it's going to be pretty much a perfect experience. I really can't think of anything that I could wish for. It has pretty much everything. I could go on and on with the positives, but let's just summarize this thing. What? So, the Onyx Boox Nova 2, what do I think about it? I'm completely blown away. I did not expect it to be what it is. I'm surprised by the flexibility, portability, the pure practicality of the format it is. The 7.8-inch format just really works so good, and even though it's a small difference, the 300 pixels per inch, the difference is there, and it is ever so slightly more pleasant reading experience for me. With the ability to actually zoom, customize my pages any way I want, whatever type of document I have, the small format really doesn't matter much, because I can do whatever I want with the document that I'm reading or a book that I'm reading, so that it's always readable and always completely usable for whatever type of use I may have. Packed with the 2.3 updates, which are also amazing. You know, I think that this is a new yardstick for other competitors to look at, and when you actually put the price into context, then it's a complete no-brainer. I wish I had reviewed this before the Supernote, because then I would have had a different perspective of things. However, I will be doing an in-depth review between the Supernote A6 and the Onyx Boox Nova 2, because they are direct competitors. They're both 7.8-inch tablets, and they are both roughly in the same price region. However, Rata is actually more expensive. So I think it warrants a direct comparison to actually see what you get for your money and what is the better choice between these two. Overall, I'm beyond impressed. I'm completely blown away. I'm gonna have to take a day or two away from this and then do a clear-headed comparison review between this and the Supernote A6, so that I can keep objectivity, because currently I'm still under very strong impression, positive impression from the Onyx Boox Nova 2. Absolutely fantastic job here. Thanks for watching, and thanks for all of the support. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, please like it and consider subscribing to the channel. And please check out the My Deep Guide Instagram, Twitter, Facebook and the website, because often I'll post some short snippets and blurbs basically during the process of reviewing or testing out some devices, or something cool that actually I run into during the day. These are the things that are not covered in these videos, and the same goes for the website itself. It's going to operate as a blog, and they're going to be supporting articles to each of the in-depth reviews, where maybe some of the info that hasn't been covered in the video might actually show up in those articles. And also I plan, when I get a little bit more time, to start adding tips and tricks and all of that kind of stuff in the articles. So with all of those things combined, hopefully you'll get a very good ecosystem that will provide you with a lot of useful and good info regarding e-ink tablets and writers. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you next week in another video. Thanks for watching. Bye!